Muslim individuals in Texas are facing felony hate crime charges after spray painting F Israel across the walls of a church that had been displaying an Israeli flag. One of the vandals, Afshin Khan, is crying victim.
It is a case that is placing our First Amendment rights and our sense of justice on trial.
The Council on American-Islamic Relations, or CAIR, is demanding that prosecutors drop the hate crime enhancements. CAIR's Texas branch argues that while the graffiti was wrong, it constituted political expression, not religious hate, and therefore falls under First Amendment protections. Here, attorney Allison Grinter-Allen, defense attorney for one of the vandals, Ronouk Alam, explaining why her client had a right to deface private property.
I think that protest, graffiti, that sort of thing is the language of folks who are unheard. And my heart went out.
Graffiti is the language of the unheard? Local prosecutors disagree, saying defacing a place of worship with anti-Israel language crosses into targeted intimidation categories. The church's congregation included Jewish and Messianic members who regularly displayed the flag in solidarity with Israel. If CAIR prevails in this case, it could expand First Amendment protection to acts of vandalism when they're politically motivated. If the courts side with prosecutors, it would further link anti-Israel rhetoric to religious hate speech. Very interesting times we're entering. CAIR has long-running ties to Hamas-linked groups named in a 2008 federal terror financing case and has been known to defend extremist behavior under the guise of civil rights. This case now puts Texas courts at the center of a national test. Does the right to speak include the right to deface? And who decides when political expression becomes hate? We're joined now by the great Robert Spencer, founder of Jihad Watch and author of the book Muhammad, A Critical Biography. Mr. Spencer, you are a brave man for the titles that you've come out with. I know that you've been the subject of a lot of hate speech yourself. What do you make of this case?
I think that it's the height of hypocrisy for the Hamas-linked Council on American-Islamic Relations to be defending these people, because we know, first thing, that if somebody had written F Iran on the side of a mosque, they would be the first people to be calling for the restrictions on speech, and not saying that graffiti was the voice of the unheard, but saying that this is hate speech that has to be prescribed and outlawed, and Islamophobia programs put in everywhere for everybody even remotely connected to it. And for that matter, you know, the idea of hate speech in itself is manipulative and subjective, and CAIR very cleverly uses it to try to silence its opponents, and has done so for years. So it's the height of hypocrisy for them to turn around in this case and now say, oh, we're all about the freedom of speech. They are the enemies of the freedom of speech. They have been so for many decades now, since before 9/11. And so it's kind of jaw-dropping that they have the gall, the audacity to take these stances, but they just know nobody in the establishment media is ever going to call them out.
And for that matter, a lot of politicians are afraid of calling them out. A lot of people are afraid of calling them out because, frankly, they represent a religion that is known to carry out individualized vendettas against people. And so there's a lot of not just hypocrisy, but a lot of social pressure that comes with it. It seems to me, Robert, that CAIR has had kind of an up and down influx in the social discourse. So now it seems like it's having a big comeback, riding this wave of anti-Israel sentiment on, frankly, both the right and the left in response to the last 2 years.
Oh, absolutely. It's a tremendous windfall, but it's all for them. But it's also something that they've been working for a very long time. People wonder, what is it that's happened that there's so much anti-Israel sentiment after October 7th, when there ought to have been a wave of sentiment in favor of Israel after the grotesque, savage attack that we saw on that day. And so the fact is that this didn't come out of nowhere. Groups such as CAIR have tremendous influence. They have the ear of the establishment media. They have the ear, as you noted, of all too many politicians, people courting their votes and so on. And so they have been sowing the seed for this, laying the groundwork for this for years. And now what we see is, to a tremendous degree, the fruit of their labors.
What do you view as CAIR's most effective asset or strategy today in America right now?
The Muslim vote, which they have wildly exaggerated, by the way. They have been lying and inflating the numbers of Muslims in the United States for many years. It was way back, I remember, in like 2002 or 3, they were saying there were 8 million Muslims in the United States. There aren't 8 million Muslims in the United States even now. But they have always inflated those numbers and courted politicians, tried to get Muslims and sympathetic people into positions of interest. They've been very effective at this. And now, of course, the Democrat Party is in their pocket because they want the Muslim vote. And then the Republican Party also thinks, well, we need to get into that. What can we give to the Muslim community that will bring them to vote for us? And actually, the president had some success with this back in the last election. And so they are able to wield tremendous influence as a result of people wanting the votes.
So in terms of a political vehicle, we saw the Muslim population, for the most part, jumping on board with the left. And it seems like with their anti-Israel positions, they're going to stay there for a little bit. But as you say, and I was going to bring this up, we saw a strange influx of Muslim voters, if not supporting Trump outright, definitely abandoning the Democratic Party. So that puts the political landscape in a very awkward position, doesn't it?
Oh, it's very weird, Chanel, because think about it. The reason why they abandoned the Democrats was because they hate Israel. And they thought that Biden and Kamala Harris were not tough enough on Israel. And for some reason, they had the idea that Trump was going to be more to their liking. And Trump was saying, of course, that he wanted to bring about peace, and they thought they could manipulate him to bring about a peace that would be favorable to Hamas and allow them to continue the jihad against Israel. Now, we hope that that doesn't turn out to be the case, but at the same time, when he says to the Israelis to stop and not to go into Gaza and finish the job and to destroy Hamas utterly, as they have said was the goal right from the beginning, then that does feed into that perception.
In terms of the co-opting I see on the right, you're seeing, personalities like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, big conservative voices who once used to be huge Islam critics, now seem oddly silent when it comes to anything involving radical Islam. You rarely see Tucker criticizing Dearborn, Michigan these days, but you do hear him talking about pretty much the stuff that you'd hear Dearborn, Michigan residents saying against Israel. How do you explain that trend? What's going on there?
Well, I don't know whether they're, you got to wonder when you have high profile people like that, like Candace and Tucker, who suddenly change the public positions that they've defended for years. And you can go back not too long ago and find clips of them very strongly defending Israel, being critical, as you say, of Islam. And now they've completely turned around. You got to wonder, are they bought? Are they being blackmailed? Are they being intimidated? Or have they genuinely changed their minds for some reason? This is the kind of thing that really they ought to be coming clean about and explaining and honestly owning up to the fact that they have changed their positions. It's abundantly documented anyway. And so it's not as if it's some sort of a surprise or something that they can reasonably deny to anybody who's been paying attention to their careers. Right. So I think their followers and the American people as a whole have a right to know what is it that's exactly going on here. There's a lot of dark whispering about Qatar and paying large sums of money and so on, which is kind of ironic, since this is always the false claim about Israel, that they're supposedly buying influence in the United States. Qatar, there's already abundant evidence that they really are doing so. They've poured millions and millions of dollars into American universities, and now we see what they've bought. All these pro-Hamas students out demonstrating against Israel all the time, and sometimes being quite violent about it. And so the same questions ought to be asked of Tucker, of Candace Owens, and of others like them, and they ought to be willing to answer.
Robert Spencer, a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it as well.
Coming up, investor James Fishback has filed a Supreme Court brief backing Trump's right to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook, a case that could redefine presidential power in really significant ways. He joins us next. We'll be right back.